Hello and welcome to Talking with Trailblazers. What are the 3 areas that you need to focus on in your CBD business? And how often have you been asked why start a CBD business? And if you're not getting that question, it's also likely how is business going? So there's no doubt that it's crowded, and we have a guest here to talk about some really key things to remember to focus on. And one of them is often overlooked. Actually, 2 of them are often overlooked. So I'm really excited that Davina Kaonohi, did I get it right?
Yes, you
Close.
got it right.
Practicing a million times. It's everyone's last name. Davina's joining us today. She's the CEO and co-founder of Element Apothec. Welcome, Davina. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm really excited to have you here because one of the things that we were talking about before is that we don't talk a lot about 2 of the topics that we're going to cover today. And so I think it's really important that people are paying attention and watching carefully. So if you're watching, be sure and drop us a note in the comments and tell us that you're here and where you're here from and any questions that you have as we go through the show. And if you're watching this after, let us know that you're watching the replay and feel free to tag Davina and I in any comments because we'll be sure to keep an eye on it and come back and answer your questions. So, Davina, one of my favorite things to ask people is how did you get started? What made you decide to co-found Element Apothec?
Yeah, it's an interesting story and kind of 2 various parts of my life. But the first part is that I've been around cannabis since I was young and was actually at a school a rally when they were doing talking about drugs and asked if any of our families, smoke marijuana or do cocaine. And
Oh,
I remember going home and worried about my dad being arrested. I sat there and didn't raise my hand, and I thought they would knew that the police officers would knew I was lying. And so that was early, that was young in my life. And my dad explained to me that without cannabis, and marijuana, marijuana is he called at the time, or pakalolo because he's Hawaiian, that he couldn't live, that he had such severe PTSD that he couldn't sleep, that he wouldn't be able to even step outside the house. So I grew up always believing that this plant helped people. Fast forward through my life, I had experiences in e-commerce and helping companies build their strategy and operational plans. And a couple of years ago, my great aunt came to me and asked me to help build her website. She had created over 40 formulations through over a period of 10 years after being diagnosed with medical conditions and autoimmune diseases, but she was allergic to a lot of the
oh,
medication.
oh, where'd you go?
Needed to figure out how to get the.
You're
I'm
back.
here.
You're back. Are you back? Are you a cat?
Yeah, I don't know why it's really so slow today.
It's okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so she had to take her health into her own hands. She grew her own cannabis plants in her living room, made her own Rick Simpson oil, and little by little started creating formulations and products to help other people. So when she came to me, she wanted me to help her to figure out how to bring her products from the kitchen to the world and basically handed over the business to me. And I was so passionate about helping people, but not only that, but really creating good, clean, and safe products. And myself, I'm always a person that tells people, "Do you know what you're putting on your lips, or do you know what shampoo you're wearing?" And I believe in really looking at clean products and supporting good companies. So it really blended with what we wanted to do with Element Apothec. So that's kind of how I got here, and really believe in the power of the plant, and as well as what people deserve in terms of products that can help them.
I love that, and I love that it comes with that it's part of your family story. Although I just want to step back and what police officers are allowed to go in school and ask children if any of their parents are doing cannabis or cocaine. Like that is crazy.
I know.
And horrifying. Seriously. Like
Yeah.
as a kid, you're like so afraid.
Right. And I mean, it started the whole, it's just so many of the views people have of trying to convince them that it's safe to come over started with people feeling like cannabis was put in alignment with some of these drugs that were really bad for people.
And it still is. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, right? Federally and in a lot of people's minds. But oh my gosh, that's horrifying that they were trying to get kids to narc on their parents. Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
that is awful in so many ways. Um, so as we look at, can you talk a little bit about what Element Apothec is before we get started, just so people know where you're coming from? Because there's a lot of different women in the group that are from different areas of the industry.
Yeah, so Element Apothec, we're a new clean body care and wellness brand in the CBD space, and we're really committed to having 100% clean, safe products. And what's interesting and fun, I think, about our brand also is that we do include other minor cannabinoids in our products because we feel that they're so impactful and really can make a difference in the products that we've created.
That's fantastic. So, do you have any favorite cannabinoids that you include?
Yeah, I mean, right now we're using CBG and CBN.
Mm-hmm.
We are looking at CBC and THCA in some of our upcoming formulations as well. There's just a lot less research in terms of what those cannabinoids can do. So we want to be really careful of the products we create and adding them to it without having some of that research. So
Yeah.
we're working on helping validate some of the reasons we think we would incorporate those ingredients into the products.
That makes sense for sure. I know personally, I had a product that was pre legalization that was TCHA, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And now they've companies aren't doing that right now. Like, I searched for a while to try and find it and or something similar, and it's been a rough 2 years. I still miss that product.
Yeah, that's why we like our sleep tincture. We use CBN, and I mean that's so amazing to really create such a good night's sleep. It's funny because some nights I think I don't need it, and then I'm like, wait, I didn't take it last night. Oh, I didn't sleep well. I better make sure I take it tonight.
Yeah, I do that as well. So one of the things that I think is really interesting about your background and doing, and all the companies that you worked at before you started your business, what can you talk a little bit about the importance of team and what you've seen there and how that works from you, how you use what you learned in the past to influence and make your own business, make Element Apothec stronger?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think there's a lot of people that are solopreneurs, and I think that that's fine. But I also think it depends on where you want to grow to. And so my background working in startups was the beginning of it was really building your core foundation team and who's going to help you get to where you want to go to, and really thinking about what that path and trajectory looks like for you, and not trying to figure it out all on your own, because if you can bring people to really support you and bring their expertise and experience when you're starting out, it's only going to help you cross those bridges a lot faster. And so that was something when we started Element Apothec that, like, maybe on my own, sure, I might be able to figure this out, but if I really support and put all of the people around me that are going to help. So we brought on David Crowther, who's our COO, to manage the manufacturing logistics. That was the experience that he had. He's really good with website and video production, and bringing on Dr. Swati, who's our chief scientific officer, to really look at all of our formulations. And so we instantly have all of these core requirements that we need for the business now as part of our founding team. And then on top of that, we look to expand through an advisory board of what are things maybe as a beginning business that we can't necessarily afford to bring in all these people, but maybe in exchange for equity and products and future opportunities, can we expand, and looking at things like finance and additional, retail strategy, and looking at fundraising and overall business knowledge, and launching a CPG brand. So we brought in those skills through an advisory board as well to complement, because I really think a team is just to complement what you have and what you don't have, and bring that all together so that you look like a company that's much bigger. You have the skills and the experience to take you where you want to go. And so that was really important for me, just because of my experience. I've worked in companies where they didn't hire someone, or they waited, or they hired the wrong person, and oftentimes those were the reason why they failed many years later, is because of not really focusing on building that team from the beginning. And of course we all can't afford it as new brands launching and startups, and so you have to be creative of how can we bring people in to work together, and what are ways we can manage our money to make that happen.
And I think you said something really interesting there. There's a couple of points I want to drill down into a little bit. One is that teams can look however you want them to look. That doesn't mean that you're hiring employees.
Right.
Have you seen, or did you, you said you brought on several other people, and the advisory board is one way to do that. Have you seen other ways that people have brought on teams without necessarily making hires that
Yeah,
you think helps?
yeah, we have consultants. So, one of the person that we're working with is our sales strategy as a consultant. She recently came on as an advisor, but initially was a consultant, which helped because we also could see how we work together and if it was a good relationship, and
For
if she
sure.
could feel comfortable contributing her time to know that we'll be successful in the future. So I think consultants is another way. Interns, we actually are working with a group of interns that are working with Dr. Swati to produce content and see how pharmacy students could actually play a role in a corporate environment. So there's so many different ways that a team can look, especially like I said, when you don't have the money just to bring on a whole bunch of people because it's expensive to pay for their salaries and benefits and taxes.
And I think that's really interesting because one of the things that can make a big difference is making sure that you're bringing on the right people. But also, what I see a lot of people do is bring on people that are similar to them, right? So then you end up with almost, for lack of a better word, one personality type trying to do all the different things. And it usually doesn't work very well. It might work great in the beginning, but it will last. And you don't have, if everyone's the same, they're all agreeing with each other. So you don't get that
Right.
outside point of view. So
Exactly.
so sometimes it's really important to remember to diversify the personality types,
Yeah,
not
I think
just the
that.
rules. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say no. I think that's so important. It's such a good point that you said because if you're bringing on everyone that's gonna think like you and have the same skill set, what value are you bringing? And really thinking about like what are my core competencies? What are my skills? And what do we need as a business to function? And then looking at what you don't have and really seeing, what you need to bring in somebody else.
At what point do you have any advice for the women in the group in terms of like at what point do you recommend that they start looking at bringing in and building out a team?
I mean, I think in the beginning, having at least one other co-founder to partner with is, at least for me, was so helpful to be able to bounce ideas off of and talk to, and just even have that different perspective on things of, me thinking we should go this way, and they're like, no, we thought about that, maybe we should do this instead. So, I mean, if you can, having somebody in the very beginning stages is important, but as early as you can, as early as you have the ability to bring people on, even if it's, we brought on Dr. Singh, one of our medical advisors, really early. It was only a couple hours a month that he was going to be contributing time because that's what we could afford.
Mm-hmm.
So part of it is how soon can you and how fast can you actually afford people to be able to do it?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of different ways you can do it too, right? Like for example, if you there's things that like a VA could do or an intern could do, and then also to your point at the founder level, personally, I've spent this year was the first year I didn't do it, but the last few years I've spent a 1 to 2 days doing just a brainstorm strategy session with Kira Reed over at the main WEIC group and the founder of all these groups, just because that way we can do a side by side strategy for each other on each other's businesses, because that's what we do and it's always harder for yourself. So I think that that can take many different shapes and forms because, like, I would consider that I have a team, even though a lot of my team is mainly support and bouncing ideas off of. It's not like an official team.
Mhm.
But if you can do it and start scaling, building your business to add new people in and figure out how you can scale, the sooner the better. I totally agree with that for sure. And it just can look a lot of different ways.
Right.
One of the things that goes hand in hand with that, I think, is number two of what we were going to talk about today is really finding your passion. And I think it's important to find your passion, but also a passion that aligns with the people that you're bringing on. So it all ties together. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that means to you? Did I lose you?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you hear the question?
Yeah, I heard everything that you said.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, I think finding your passion is so important, and I guess I think it keeps cutting out.
I can still hear you. You're getting a little pixelated view wise, but we can still hear
Yeah,
you.
I look like a cool computer robot or something. I don't know. Um,
Oh, now we lost her. Oh,
can you
Davina.
hear me
Yes, now we can.
still? Okay. I'm not sure what's happening today. But again, you were talking about finding your passion, and I think, through my career and different jobs, I was always looking for that, and I always was looking for how can I make a difference? What is important to me? And I would wake up and go to work, and I liked it because I was helping people. I worked in human resources and then operations and strategy, and I felt like I was making an impact. But at the end of the day, I still something was missing. And it's interesting because as I started working on Element Apothec and launching it, it changed. Every day I woke up and I had a different feeling about what I was doing, and it didn't feel like work anymore. It felt like this is what I this is what everything has brought me up to. This is the moment that it all kind of, happened, and the way that it happened was in the right way. But I think finding your passion and your why changes so much. It's changed how I feel in general in my life. I feel less stressed. I mean, launching a business is crazy. I won't take that away, but it's a different stress though. It doesn't feel like there's a gap in my life, and I felt like that for a long time because you do spend so much time working, and I don't know. It's a great feeling, but I think really thinking about what it is that's important to you, because I struggled with that for a long time and thinking, well, let me try, maybe this role in a company will do better, or maybe this path, and really laying out what's important to you, what at the end of the day is going to make you feel good about what you do. And that's different for everybody. I think
Mm-hmm.
everyone has a different why or passion. But for me, I think without that, it's like you're missing something and you don't have the same drive that you might have otherwise.
It's absolutely true. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is that once you figure that out, so I have two questions for you. How do you align your why and your reason for starting the company with that of your co-founder?
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, we kind of came into it from different perspectives, and then you have Dr. Swathi, who we brought in as an additional
Mm-hmm.
co-founder. She has a different reason. I mean, so we all have some similarities in that we care about the consumer, we care about education and making a difference. So I think underlying the motivations behind what we're doing is the same. Um, and I also think having those differences is also good because it challenges you in ways that you're thinking about working on your business and the strategy and what the plan is of really having that balance. So I think a lot of it too, for me anyways, I remember meeting Swathi. We met at a coffee shop, our first meeting, and we really dug into, why am I launching this business and why is this important to me? What's important to her? And really asking hard questions about, why is this important to you? Where do you want this to go to? What's your commitment to the company? And really making sure that those things are aligned, are the same, because I've seen companies not do that and quickly bring someone on just to fill a spot, and it doesn't often work out well, or they end up, they get to a point where a year down the line things were good and then they start butting heads because they didn't have that alignment of what is the goal that they're trying to accomplish, and what is the motivation behind their why, because I think that also makes a big difference.
Absolutely, especially in a small company, right? When you only have a few people, it's a
Mhm.
little easier.
Right.
I mean, you still want to communicate that out as you grow and make sure everyone's aligned and understands the brand story, but it becomes less of a personal responsibility, I think.
Yeah.
But I think those questions that you're asking are the hard questions that are really important to have answered before you bring someone on, especially when it's employee number three.
Yeah.
Um, so one of the third thing that we're talking about, sorry, three, is we have a responsibility to do better for the for the consumer. That's something that you said, and I know you feel strongly about it. Can you talk a little bit about what that means to you and what type of responsibility you take and think that the rest, all of us should have as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, I think for myself personally, and I think that there's also a shift of the consumerism of thinking about what you're actually buying, what that company stands for, and investing your money in a product that go beyond just a product that can serve a specific purpose. And so that's something that's important to me. I for a long time now, read every label and make sure that the products that I'm bringing into my house support brands that are doing the right thing and also are clean and safe. I mean, there's personal care industry is a mess. Like there's 1,400 ingredients that are banned in Europe and Canada that we can use here in our products. And so that's to me, that's been something I've been so passionate about. Like I said, I tell people like, do you know what's in that shampoo or what you're putting on your face? So as a launching a brand, thinking about what would I want to buy as a consumer? What brand products would I feel comfortable supporting? That went into a lot of the decisions when we were launching the brand. And it started because of a need and they had to be clean and safe. And so continuing with that ethos, but trying to do even more like thinking about sustainability. I love the outdoors and nature. And so hiking and spending time at the ocean. And so thinking about sustainability, and then thinking about transparency, knowing we buy products every day that there's ingredients missing because if they're under a certain amount, they don't have to be on the label. And then hearing all of the stories of all of the warning letters that the FDA keeps sending out because people are inaccurately labeling even their CBD quantities, and just thinking about how could we do better, and how can we as an industry elevate so that the consumers don't look at this industry as being questionable, and all of these warning letters slowly hopefully trickle and go away as people are doing better, and each of us helps the other brand, and we all can help each other by holding ourselves accountable to that. So that's a long answer, but that's why I feel really passionate about it and why I think it's so important too.
No, I think it's a great answer, and I'm like, I feel seen because my bathroom counter is covered with products because I'm testing a bunch of different ones because I'm trying to get rid of some of those extra chemicals out of my personal environment and what I'm using. So absolutely. One of the things that we touched on last week or 2 weeks ago with Meryl that I wanted to touch on as well is certifications. How does that relate to the responsibility that we need to do better for the consumers as well as building trust?
Yeah, I mean, I think you if you could just say trust me, right? That would be the ideal scenario. But unfortunately, so many brands have made that difficult for companies and new brands launching. And so the certifications really are the way to say to the consumer, you can trust me because we have been validated and verified to be these things. And so I think it helps companies to be able to put their best foot forward to the consumer and start to create the relationship of trust. So, if you're vegan, you want to make sure that it's cruelty free and things like that are important to people. Or we went through a clean certification where every ingredient was looked at and made sure that it was safe. They have really strict standards, actually stricter even than EWG in terms of the ingredient usage, and trying to make the consumer feel like it, like I said, it's not just our word, but we're actually walking the walk. We're going through these efforts and going through 1% for the planet, because we can say we care and we want to give back, and anybody can say that. But if you're committed to actually being part of something like that, you have an obligation now and a requirement to actually meet those goals. Or B Corp certifications, all of these things have specific things that you as a corporation have to do and have to prove to be able to get that. And I think it's not just, you're not flaunting because someone said, are you doing it just to flaunt? It's not about flaunting, it's just about creating trust for the consumer to say we've gone through these extra steps because we care about how you feel about our products. And I think that I hope that all brands consider doing that because it does make a difference. And yeah, some of them are more costly. And so you get there, right? Like some of the organic certifications for us, even like we're going to get there now because it cost a lot to do that in the beginning. But do what you can because it does help change the perspective, especially I think in this industry as we're all challenging all of these companies that have launched that are not doing the same thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that just when I think about what products I recommend to people, it always starts there. Somebody was offering me Delta 8 gummies recently to try because I hadn't tried them before. And I had to refuse because I had no idea. Like, I have to see what's in them. I have too many food allergies, too many sensitivities caused by this world we live in to
Yes.
take a chance, even on a little gummy, that it's going to make me feel terrible. And then I won't understand the full effect of what Delta 8 can do.
Right.
I mean, I've since resolved that, but I then turned to like Taya over at Crooked Cactus because I knew she was testing it out, and I know what a strict certification and quality check process she does for her products. Like, I
Right.
know I can trust them no matter what.
I think that it's so important in all of the decisions that we make to think about that in terms of how we're, where we're buying and where we're putting our money in. Some of these ingredients, the thing is, I think, is that people realize in small doses they're okay, but when you accumulate over time, they really can have a big impact on us. And so thinking about how we make those decisions and companies then certifying and saying, okay, I am putting in the strictest standards to follow. And if you don't have the money to certify, at least still go through that process, right, of holding yourself accountable to being the best that you can be.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you said about the accumulation effect. I was driving to Northern California. We're just going to skip 2020, over a year ago. And I ended up driving through while they were doing the pesticide spray. So they had the airplane spraying on one side of the highway, and then they paused it and sprayed on the other side. And there was so much in the air. I was sick for the rest of the drive home. Like, I actually had to pull over somewhere and buy some allergy medication to see if that would help because there was just so much in the air that had bothered me. I felt it immediately. And it just got me to thinking, like, if that's actually on the food that we're eating, you don't notice it when it's one or two.
Mhm.
But I was sick. Like, and I just was, if I'm eating it and not just breathing it in, it just adds up and adds up.
Yeah,
And what are we doing to ourselves?
right. Yeah, it's something we don't think about, and even putting it on our bodies. I think people think a lot about what they put in their body is important, but what you put on your body is as important. And the personal care space in general has kind of forgotten about that. And I think, as brands, I think it's so amazing as, you think of cannabis and the plant and it's like comes from nature. And so if we can also really think about what we're utilizing in our products and really try to use things that are more natural and help people, that's kind of the origin of the beginning of the plant anyways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know we're at time. I wanted to wrap up. Davina, thank you so much for being here. Can you let people know where they can find you if they have any questions, want to reach out and learn more about what you guys are doing and your products that you have available?
Yeah, so you can reach me directly at Davina at elementapothec.com, or just go to our website, elementapothec.com as well. We have a contact us there and you can ask Dr. Swathi questions if you have questions specifically about CBD or our products as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here, Davina. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll be back. We're starting to get quite a few interviews scheduled, so I'm very excited to have Davina here as well as some new guests coming up. So check the group, drop any questions or comments in here for Davina, and we will talk to you later. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Davina.
Great, thank you so much.
All right, bye.